Welcome everyone. This is our Thursday morning production call, and we got a good one lined up for y'all. We've hit on this before, but we're going to just really go through it a little more in detail. Last time I think we did it with another topic, but this time it's just going to be the 10 steps of running a really good appointment to give you the highest possible close rate for you. So we're just going to hit you with again, try to keep it super simple. We're going to give you all steps. These are definitely non-negotiable steps, right? Like don't miss any of them. And we're gonna give y'all some nuggets. But first, I always love to say, right, this is an hour-long call. I do not want y'all on here and not get the value out of it. Please make sure we take notes, right? Because we bounce ideas off of each other to help us. Please have a pen and notepad out, write these things down. Do not go and change your entire appointment. That is not what we want you to do. We want you to pick 2 or 3 things that, hey, you know what? I think that will help my appointment because, you know what? I am having a problem here. Or I feel that, right, I don't build enough rapport. I feel, right, that I'm not assuming the sell, whatever it may be. Just add those things. Again, always counsel with your upline too. Like, hey, you know what? I heard this on the call. What do you think about this? Because I feel like I'm struggling. It really, really does help you. You will go, I promise you, you will go right business or more business, should I say, if you add 1 or 2 things to your appointment. And what we humbly ask is if you go apply it and it did help you help one more family, or you, hey, you know what, I added this part and it really did help, that you post it in band, right? Which one helped you? And that way other agents can see it. We're a big community in the whole Cook hierarchy, and it really does help other agents. I can't tell you how many times somebody will post something and another agent will be like, hey, I saw them doing that and I did it too, and it really does work. Thank you. So just as a big community, right, we ask that we work together with that part. And we're going to get started. I just kind of hit on this, right? Again, these are 10 steps to give you the highest close rate, right? When we watch an agent get into their prime, right? And when I say their prime, right, like, hey, they're in a really good role, they're helping a ton of families, they're usually sitting at a 70 to 80% close rate, which is extremely high, right? What does that mean is, right, every 10 sits, every 10 families they sit with, they're submitting 7 to 8 applications. Extremely high results, right? That's where you start seeing an agent in the 6 to 10 times return on their lead investment. Now, James, you said this earlier, and I'd love you to hit on this, right, real quick. But right, so we're going to give you 10 steps, and I want you to understand every time you leave one of these steps out, James, me and you kind of bounce this number around, but like your close rate is going down about 10%. And I want y'all to think about that. Every time you leave one of these 10 steps out, your close rate is easily going down about 10%. So I want y'all to think about that, right? Because if at your best, you can be at let's just say lower numbers, right? You can be at a 70% close rate, right? That means you're doing all 10 of these things, you're on your prime, you're running it really good. But now you start leaving things out, right? Out of these 10 steps, right? If you leave 4 things out, that's 40% less. That means you're closing at a 30% close rate. And I want y'all to think about that as you, right? Because I say, hey, go add a couple of these things, right? I'm not saying go change your appointment, but we're going to give them to you all, right? And then we're gonna break them down. So we'll put them in the chat too, but we're going to give you all 10 steps. And I just want you to realize every step you're not adding in this, you're taking 10% close rate off of your, just right out of the gate. I don't care how good of an appointment you run, you're hurting your numbers because these are crucial to making sure you have the highest close rate possible. So we're going to start with number 1. It's booking Zoom appointments. Okay. Booking a Zoom appointment. James, if you want to help me put these in the chat, right? But so number 1 is going to be booking a Zoom appointment. Okay. That'll be number 1. Number 2 is going to be building rapport. Number 2 is building rapport. Number 3 is the other role and purpose. Okay, and I'm going to break that down, but it's the other role and purpose, not the one in the real script. It's the other role and purpose. Number 4 It's using the real script. Using the real script, number 4. Number 5, it's doing an FIF in your appointment. Not the reset, right? Because we teach, do a reset, sending it to your FME, but that is not what we're talking about. Doing an FIF is a financial information part, right? It's where you diagnose the client, right? You cannot prescribe any mortgage protection or any life insurance policy if you have not diagnosed their situation, the FIF, which is the financial information. Number 6, why questions and drawing out emotion. Why questions and drawing out emotion. Number 7, making sure you're showing the options, right? When we say this, either having them write it down or sharing it on the slide, but somewhere for that client, it's got to be visual, right? Don't think you can bark out or just say a couple of options and they're just going to remember and be like, okay, this is what I want. Not the way it works. You got to be able to share your screen somehow, send them a text message with the options, have them write it down, but somehow they have to see the options they can pick from. And then number 8 is going to be assume the sale. It's going to be pull the trigger, right? Assume the sale. That's number 8. Number 9 is going to be the lockdown. And then number 10 is going to be the 5 R's. And we'll break all those down at the end. But those are the 5 R's, right? Those are the 10 steps. Understand, right, at your prime, you're going to be closing about 70% close rate, right? Every step you leave out, you just go ahead and knock 10% down, right? Because you're not going to be hitting these key things to make sure you, right, you have good rapport, you build the script, or you make the sale, right? But it'll hurt your close rate if we're not on point with all of them. And then number 4 was the real script for you. James, you got them? Type them in there. Sweet. All right. So we're going to start. We're going to break down each one. We're going to give you all some tips on them, right? But first, let's start with number 1 is booking a Zoom appointment. That needs to be non-negotiable for you. There is nothing like building rapport, letting Zoom do your rapport building, right? Because you're a real person, right? Making sure you don't have blurred backgrounds, making sure you don't have fake backgrounds. Highly recommend, right? Find a wall for $10. You can make it look very, very professional, right? They just got to see that they're in business with a real person. Realize we're trying to get them to say yes, right? To $100, $200, $300 a month policies. They want to know they're talking to a real person, right? It is highly, highly recommended. You do that for your Zoom. There is nothing like seeing both of them on your appointment, right? Shaking their head, they're watching you. You get to mimic off of each other's body language, right? But Zoom has a way higher close rate than just running a phone appointment. Zoom also has a higher show rate, right? Because there's a few more steps. They got to plan for it. They got to make sure, right? Like, hey, they need to make sure their background looks good, right? They're not just going to jump on Zoom and have a trashy background. Realize they're going to prep for you a little bit more. They're going to make sure they're somewhere quiet, right? If you're running a phone appointment, how many times have you ran a phone appointment on a car while they're driving, while they're at work, right? Those are reasons why you're running those kind of appointments and why you're getting to think about it, or hey, right, they're rushing you off the phone because you're running an appointment while someone's driving. How much attention do you think they're giving you while they're driving their car from work in traffic and you're over here breaking everything down? Do you really think you have 100% of their attention? I promise you, you don't. We have done it. It's not that we haven't. We're just telling you, you're gonna get to think about it, right? It's like running a one-legged appointment. Do not do it. I had one the other day. They were driving, and she's like, "Yeah, it's okay, Joe. I can pay attention." I'm like, "No, it's okay, right? I need you to be able to write a couple of things down for me, right? That I gotta explain. So just tell me when you're home." And I had to book it the next day. Have the posture. You got to understand this. If you run an appointment like that over the phone, whether they're on lunch break, whether they're driving, it's a think about it. You are not writing an app, right? Like, think about it. How many of y'all can, from beginning to end, run an appointment and write an application in under 30 minutes? I can't. How many of y'all can do it in under an hour? Very rare. If I write maybe one, right? So if my goal is to write multiple applications and they're telling me they have 45 minutes for lunch or an hour for lunch, right? You're almost promising yourself you're going to run an appointment and get a think about it or call me tomorrow. I just ran an appointment at home. She said, yes, let's do it tomorrow morning. That was today at 8 a.m. She didn't show up. This is someone that wrote down options, right? Again, I had the highest probability and they still didn't happen. Imagine the odds, right, of them that you're trying to run a lunch appointment or while they're driving, right? It's not on the top of their list, right? Again, it's doing all these things to make sure you have the highest possible close rate. Okay. It is way better for you to just book it for tomorrow. You didn't lose it, right? And if they don't show up tomorrow, that's fine. You're going to reschedule them for another time. Remember, the majority of our sales are made right there and then in the appointment, and we close them. That is the majority of our sales. Anything else goes into a 10% rule. That means I don't care how good it sounded. And they tell you, I swear, Brooke, tomorrow we're going to write these applications. You started it and I just need the bank information. I don't care. If it's rescheduled, it falls into the 10% rule. That means 10% chances of you writing that application. I promise you, go back and look at your numbers. You're going to have 10 of them scheduled and you'll have one written policy. Though we have done this for years, it will always, right? I hate it, Brooke, right? It will, I don't care how, I'm telling you, I swear, I even told everybody last night, I was like, I got this app. She wants it so bad. 8 a.m. today, I called, no answer. It was like, I for sure thought I was writing an application today for $133. Nope. 10% rule, right? Maybe I can get it rescheduled, maybe not, but I promise once I have about 10 of those, I'll write an application, right? Know your numbers where they're at. So running a Zoom appointment, making sure you're there somewhere where they can pay attention to you. Same thing, right? Hey, I'm going to go over your options, Brooke. Do you get a pen and notepad out? Because I'm going to explain some things for you. It's in the real script. The real script tells them to grab something to write things down, right? So it's making sure you have a Zoom appointment that you're set up. Another thing of booking your Zoom appointment is making sure the spouse is there, right? Spouse, boyfriend, fiance, whatever, a couple of tricks, right? If you're working, a lot of us are working CI leads, right? So that name is not on there. A couple of tips that I use, right? I don't like to say, hey, Don, right? Anyone else on the mortgage? Because they'll say, no, no one else is on the mortgage. Right. So I don't like to say that because their spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it may be, is not on the mortgage. So it's a very, they'll say no, right? Even though they should say yes to the other person. But technically, because they're not on the mortgage, you're going to get a no. There's no one else on there. Right. So I like to say, hey, do we have a spouse or anyone else? I don't tell them why. I just say, hey, do we have a spouse or anyone else? And they're like, yes, my boyfriend, my girlfriend. Well, technically not my spouse, Joe, but right, I am seeing someone, they live with me. Okay, great. What's their name? Right? That you still get a no, right? That means they still said, hey, no, I don't have anyone. Right? Okay, great. I don't leave it there. Who would be your beneficiary if you were to pass away? And then they'll give you a name. Great. Right? Does that person have to be there, right? Depending on it, right? If it's a 65-year-old, 70-year-old, and they're telling that it's their son, they don't technically have to be there. But if they live in the home with them, right? Highly recommend that they're both there if they're living in the home, right? But that's just a great way to get that other person on there. What else? Let's see. I'll say that. I'll say, right? Who would be the beneficiary? A question I stay away from, especially on a CI lead, is because I know it's in the real script, is how long have we been thinking about getting this coverage, right? Or what did you want? What was the reason you called, right? About the protection on a CI lead, right? So understand your leads. I would not say that, right? Because they weren't thinking about it, right? CI leads are reactive people. The only reason they called us is because the little postcard said, right, your mortgage is in danger, right? So I don't say it that way. Watch your verbiage. I like to say, right, is who would be the beneficiary, right? If you were to pass away, who are we leaving the house to? Then they'll give you a name, right? Because they're not going to tell you, well, I wasn't thinking about this, right? And then you'll lose the whole appointment. So be careful with that verbiage, right? But booking a Zoom appointment and making making sure the other person is there, the spouse, right? Whoever it may be. Again, don't say who's on the mortgage because they're going to say no one, right? Again, say who's your spouse, right? Do we have a spouse or anyone else? Right? They say no to that. Hey, who would be the beneficiary? Those are great ways to pull that. And James, Amber, I don't know if y'all have anything or anyone, right? Super interactive. Feel free to unmute if you have any trouble with it.
Yeah,
Please, we love to
want to
answer.
add some numbers on there. Just if you're not doing Zoom appointments, if you're doing phone appointments, I mean, I was at a 30 to 40 close rate, you know, following everything, just not changing everything. When I went to Zoom, not changing what I did, I went up to a 70% close rate. So just know you're going to be at least minimum around a 70% close rate. As you get better on the script, and make sure you follow this checklist we're about to do, and you start tweaking, you're gonna get better. So this is running a perfect appointment. You're gonna be at 70%. You start leaving stuff out. Each one's about 10%. You're just decreasing your chances of getting to think about it, or no, if you start leaving some of these steps out.
Yeah, and I want y'all to know, right? Again, we are constantly working on our production. This is not something that once you learn it, you're good to go. The reason today's topic, I'm gonna be super vulnerable. I've been messing around with Amber and James. I'm like, hey, I don't like I keep getting a whole bunch of think about it. I'm not at the close rate that I want, right? So right now, if I look at my numbers, I'm like at a 40% close rate, 35 to 40% close rate. I don't like it. I have to get better, right? I get super comfortable because yes, I have really good leads. Yes, I find those layups, but I look at a tracker on Amber's and she's like at a 10 times return and I'm at a 4.5. I'm like, nah, I can be better. So like today's topic, I want y'all to know today's topic is based on me. Y'all are going to learn with me because I asked James, Amber, and Nate, I'm like, hey, what are things I can work on so that my appointment can get better? These are 10 things. They said, hey, Joe, make sure you're doing all 10 of these things so that you can have the highest close rates, right? And let me tell you, there's several things that I was missing. That's why my close rate was at a 40%, right? So I want y'all to understand how production works. You got to consistently work on yourself to help a family, right? So making sure I ran several, right? Again, I'll be super vulnerable. Last week, I ran several appointments where the boyfriend or girlfriend was not there. Guess what they ended up being? Think about it, right? I ran a really good appointment other than that, but I promise y'all, right? Do not do it. I consistently fail at stuff like this, right? And this is why we get frustrated and we go get a little bit better. Let me tell you, the rest of this month, I will not run a one-legged appointment. I don't care if they tell me at the end, I will cut that appointment at whatever point. They tell me, yes, there is a spouse, there is a whatever. I'm going to say, great, perfect. They do need to be here. When's a good time tomorrow to get y'all both on the phone? I will not run an appointment. I do not care. You will get a think about it. I don't care if they tell you they're the decision maker. They will tell you my appointment that I thought I was writing apps on today. She was 46. The boyfriend is 29. She goes, nope, I'm the boss. I'm the one running it. Into the appointment, Alicia. The reason I didn't close it, she goes, hey, let me just talk to him and tomorrow we can write the app.
I think that's really important too, Joe, right? Like what you said, no matter at what point in your appointment, if you find out they have a significant other, end it there. Have the posture, hey, you're the professional, this is your appointment. We don't run, you individually don't run one-legged appointments.
They're gonna always tell you that. I promise
Can
you.
I add something?
Yeah, please.
Or it's more so a question. What I've been getting some people at the end, like this past week, and it could be just something I'm saying, right? That they're saying, I need to talk to my daughter. I had two people last week that were like, oh, I need to talk to my daughter. And when they went to the final decision the next day, they were like, yeah, I talked to my daughter and she thought what we have is good. She's like, Mom, we don't need this. Why are you spending money on this?
Yep.
You
And,
know,
and all that always goes back, right? Again, when we're figuring out who needs to be on the call, right? it's, do we have a spouse or anyone else? They say no. If now we're more than likely looking at kids are going to be in that decision making, right? Who would be the beneficiary? They're going to tell you, right? And be like, hey, do you, they should probably be on the call. Do you think they need to be on the call? Because we're going to go over how this works, right? And so many times, Brooke, they will tell you there, yeah, you know what? Because she's the one that's going to end up with the house. I'm like, great. So let's book it, right? The cool thing now with Zoom, you can send out as many people can be on your call that need to be on, right?
That's
But
so good. I
you
got a
gotta
nugget out of
find
that.
you gotta find that out. I promise you, I consistently mess up. I'm telling y'all the numbers, right? Every time I find that spouse and I don't cut off the appointment or whoever needs to be there, I am not writing that. So I'm just giving y'all my numbers, right? I'm promised to myself is I am not running a one-legged appointment. I don't care where I am at in the appointment. I'm going to say, great, that person needs to be here. What I promise you, this is what happens. And I didn't understand I'm like, man, I'm gonna get it. Until one time I went to a corporate overview and they explained this to me. And now this is why I know it fails every single time if you try to run a one-legged appointment. We do a great job, right? And think about how hard our job sometimes is, right? To have to explain the concept of mortgage protection, equity protection, especially, right? Like we're teaching them, right? A $5,000-$10,000 policy is going to cover their $200,000-$300,000 mortgage. We have to build emotion. We have to make sure they understand they need it today, right now, because if we broke down their budget and tomorrow, right, this Mary won't have enough money in the bank account to pay the three months worth of bills, right? It took us 45 minutes to 30 minutes to run this appointment and explain all this, right? Now we're leaving someone that knows nothing about insurance, nothing about the concept, barely understood the options you showed them. You're leaving them the responsibility to go explain this to their spouse or their kid. Let me tell you how that conversation goes, right? If I'm caught, right, somebody just broke this down to me and Sandra, right? And or just to me, right? They run a one-legged appointment. I turn around and I'm going to go tell my wife, Sandra, hey, they said we can get a $10,000 policy for $180. What? No. There's your deal. There's your 45-minute appointment down the drain, right?
Mhm.
They went, Brooke, that one. She turned around
Even worse, honestly,
called
the
her
one
daughter,
with
right?
73.
Yeah, called her daughter and said, hey, they saying I can get coverage, right? I think it was
6
like
months of
3 months,
coverage for like
6 months of
100.
coverage for $180. They're like, Mom, no, that's crazy. That's what we're relying. That's what we put on their shoulders. So if we're a really good agent, we should not put that on their shoulders. There is no way. We are still working on our production, right? Like we're still trying to get better, and we expect them to run an appointment on their spouse or on their kids and explain how this concept works.
And you're saving yourself at the end. You're trying to save yourself at the end. Like, well, let's go ahead and get them back on the phone. And then if they did get them back on the phone, that's another hour wasted. You could have just done it right there the first time. I love that. There's one more thing I want to add, and then I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah.
When you went back to Zoom appointments, I'm sure there's somebody on here that was doing it too. I just made this correction my last production call, like 2 production calls ago, to not ask for Zoom, just to assume this is what we're doing. We're just doing Zoom.
That's so good.
So there's nowhere in the script that says you're asking them to do Zoom.
Correct, right? So many times we're not following script. In the script, I'm glad you brought that up. In the phone script, it does not say, Alicia, right? So I got a 3:00 tomorrow. Do you want to do that on Zoom or over the phone? That is not part of the script. You added that. The script says we're running a Zoom appointment, right? Y'all have to understand, do not add little things, right? It's not a question. Devontae, tomorrow at 3:00, great, right? So here's the trick around it. If y'all haven't heard this part, right? Hey, I'm going to book the appointment tomorrow, 3:00, Devontae, great. I got us down. What's your email address? I'm going to send you the appointment confirmation. He gives me the email address already. Sweet. Devontae, in that email, you're going to find a Zoom link. That's what I'm letting them know. Listen to what I just said. That's what I'm letting them know that I'm going to run a Zoom appointment. I didn't ask. I'm letting them know how I do business. It's not a question. Devontae, this is going to be a Zoom appointment. Oh, well, no worries. It's going to be super easy. If we have trouble somehow, right, I'll be able to call you as well, and I'll help you jump on there. It is not an option. They're 80-year-olds running doctor Zoom appointments. Get over that thought. It is all in your head. They can access Zoom via phone somehow. They can 100%. It's all in your head.
They
Right?
are not too old to operate Zoom.
Yep. And you're just going to call them and make it easy for them, right? Just make them feel, bring the pressure down. Maybe they're not good with technology. Great. No worries, Alicia. If you have trouble, I'll give you a call too, and I'll be able to help you. And then you stand your ground. You call them. Hey, did you get that Zoom link? Let's jump on Zoom. Do not run a phone appointment, right? Because they're going to push back too. So they're going to not jump on Zoom. They know you're going to call them because you want their business, right? Realize, how does Chris say this? He says it so well. There's a sale is made no matter what. I want y'all to understand this. A sale is made no matter what. Either your appointment makes the sale, and their sale is for you to believe they can't afford it, I don't want it, and I have no purpose for it, or you make the sale and you convince them. Somebody's going to make a sale. I promise you, right? It's all an excuse or a lie. It's who's the better salesman. You just got to stand your ground. They're going to sell you on, I'm not jumping on Zoom. And if you accept it, 30% close rate instantly. That's a really big one. Do not fall for it. Get them on Zoom. I promise you, every single time I have stopped running Zoom, it's so easy to get them back on Zoom. It's all in my head. I run every appointment on Zoom. They're going to jump on it.
Can you give me about 2 minutes, Michelle?
Right. I love it. I think Jennifer Phillips last week, you were like, oh my God, she called us because she was so nervous because there was somebody really, really, really that couldn't get on Zoom. And she's like, she's been here for months. She goes, I've never ran a phone appointment. I love that so much. That's why y'all have seen her write apps after apps after apps as a brand new agent, because she's never made that a negotiable. She does business via Zoom, and that's it. She doesn't have special clients. We all call the exact same leads, I promise you, right? She's just been really good at staying there. So I love it. Zoom appointments, making sure they're on there. Again, do not ask. This is the way we do business. Get their email address first so that then you can tell them, right? Because if not, that's an easy wall for them to put up for you. Because if you say, hey, we're going to run this on Zoom, give me your email address so I can send it to you, they're instantly, how many of y'all have heard, oh, I don't have an email?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can't activate a phone without an email. In case y'all don't know this, you can't activate a phone. The entire world has cell phones. You cannot activate an Android or an iPhone without an email. They have an email. They're lying. They're selling you, right? They're winning the sale because they're convincing you, right, that there's no need for it. So I love that part. Next one, right? So number 2, rapport. This is super important. Remember, one of the 3 reasons you get a no, right, is either they didn't like you, they didn't understand, or it's out of their price range, right? This is the like. They're going to like all of us. You just got to put a little time into it, right? And this is the cautionary tale here. Write this number down, 10 minutes. You should not have to build more than 10 minutes of rapport. Your appointment will go too long, okay? 10 minutes, you just need to be very calculated. You need to ask really good questions on rapport building, right? So find a niche. The nice part about Zoom, right, is I always use David Roberts when he's on here, right? Because he has like sports stuff in the back, right? And that's so easy to start building rapport. Don't stay there, right? Because you want to build rapport that's going to help you, that's going to be ammunition to help the family, right? So rapport building is for me, and my phrase is, what do you know about your best friend? What's their dog's name? Why they move? Where they work? Where they used to work? What brought them to their new home? Is it a new build? Is it right? How many bedrooms? Like, ask questions that you're going to be able to leverage. You have kids? How many? What are their names? How old are they? Where do they live? Where do they live is super important because, right, again, if they're just a single person and they're telling you their kids are in a different state, you do not have to pay off that house. That's almost an instant equity protection, and a really small one, because more than likely, if they live in another state, they're going to sell the home. We just need to protect it for them so that they don't have to make the payment and they can put the house up for sale and they get all the equity, right? We start to understand these things from building rapport and asking those questions, right? Oh, you have kids. Do they live with you? Oh, yeah, my son lives with me, right? My 18-year-old or my 21-year-old. That tells me something different. If my son, right, if their son lives with them, I probably want to go find as much coverage as I can for them because I want to make sure the kid gets to stay in the home, right? Little things, right? Like that's going to help you build rapport. Um, right? If it's a husband and wife, hey, where did y'all move from? Oh, is the rest of your family over there? Right? Because it's going to give me ammunition later. If a husband, Mary and John, are in the appointment, sweet, y'all are from Wisconsin, y'all now live in Arizona because you were tired of snow. I completely understand. Where's the rest of your family? Oh, everyone's still in Wisconsin. That's going to trigger me to ask a question. Mary, would you want to stay in the home if John were gone? Or did we or would you move back to with the kids and the grandbabies? Oh, I would leave in a heartbeat. We moved down here to Arizona, right? Because he has a lung problem or whatever, and it's better, the air is better for him, or the cold, right? We couldn't put up with it anymore. But I would not live here by myself, Joe. I would definitely go back with the kids. Great. Again, 3 or 4 months worth of mortgage protection. That's all I need. She told me that building rapport, right? Understand really good rapport building questions. Understand the good 7 questions or more, right? Because they're very dry at the beginning. You don't get your feelings out of it. They're all very dry. What I mean by dry is, James, let's play the game, right? Like, I'm going to ask questions and he's going to be so short and rude. They're all going to do that. You're barely meeting this person. Hey, James, thank you for hopping on the Zoom. Hey, where are you from, buddy?
In Arizona.
Okay, sweet. Are you originally from Arizona, or where are you originally from?
No, originally from Texas, San Antonio.
Oh, sweet. Okay. That's awesome. Is the rest of your family there, or what brought you over here?
Family. So they moved out here before, during the pandemic, then ended up moving out here.
Right. Every question, I'm getting him to talk a little bit more. Do not get your feelings hurt when they're very dry, right? When they're just like, oh, yeah, no. And then we get nervous and we stop building rapport. This is part of the process. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Continue to ask questions. Okay, sweet. So they moved. And so who was the first person that moved to Arizona? Why Arizona?
My brother, he was in the restaurant industry. He was a
But
GM,
now
opened up
he's
a
talking on
restaurant.
his own. Right. Okay, sweet. And do you ever plan on going back, or how do you like it out here in Arizona?
Before I thought, but then, just as I lived here more, I don't miss the traffic and the weather out there. Just it's worse than here being in the desert. Let's put it that way.
Right. And then really important, right? Make a deposit with withdrawals, right? So I got to make sure he knows things about Joe because I'm withdrawing information. I need to make a deposit to build rapport and build trust. You know what, James? I don't know. I'm from San Antonio myself. I moved out here, right? I'm giving him, I got my 4 kids. We absolutely love it out here. We like to do this. I moved out here and then my mom and dad followed me as well, right? I'm making deposits as I'm making withdrawals. If you think you're building rapport, just asking questions, and the only that when you get off your appointment, I love to tell this to an agent. If you get off the appointment, do they know everything that you know about them? Do they know everything about you? The same thing. When I get off an appointment, I know everything that I know about them, they know about me. If they told me somebody had cancer, they know my grandparents had cancer. If they told me they have kids, they know how many kids I have. If they told me they moved from another job, they know I moved over here from another job 18 years ago. Just about every appointment I get off knows I have owned different businesses, that me and my kids like to go kayak, that I have 4 kids, 2 12-year-olds, a 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old, that me and my wife were married, right? That me and my wife were divorced. They know everything about me. They know I got a chocolate lab and a baby Yorkie, especially if they got dogs. They know everything about me that I know about them. That is a proper exchange. That's how you build trust.
Yeah, don't sound like you're interrogating them back-to-back question.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's good, right? If you're not giving them information, that's so good. You're literally interrogating them. If you did not give them any questions, you're just a cop asking all these random questions. You're gonna make them feel uncomfortable, right? So then when you get to the, hey, I need your bank information, I need your social security, I need your height and weight. I don't know anything about you. And then you're on Zoom and you don't listen to us and you have a blurred background. I don't even know where you're at. Y'all got to think about these things, right? Like build rapport means being super open to them, right? So just make
Favorite
sure,
with
again, you're
that.
building that trust. Yeah.
My favorite with that is I'll be in an appointment, and because now I'm in my new office, like this is my wall right here, and there's space behind me. I could be writing something down, and they see my dog run
Yeah.
in with his squeaky toy, playing with it by himself over here, and it builds good rapport. They're like, "Oh, you're human. Like you work from home. You have a dog. Cool."
Parents, if y'all are running appointments, right? Like I used to, and I'm telling y'all what I used to go through. I used to get so upset that my kids would make noise in the background. And I'd be like, shh, I'd mute myself and I'd be like, shut up. Right. I'd freak out. I was losing on rapport. Now, when my wife brings the kids or they are here, whatever, let me run an appointment because I can guarantee you what's going to happen. Tiffany or Austin are going to walk into my office and they're going to be like, right? And I'm like, oh, hey, this is my 6-year-old, right? Mom, he's waiting on mom to pick him up for right from school or whatever it may be. And they're like, oh my God, they love it. Right? Do not, your family, right, is who you are. And that's a huge, huge rapport builder, right? Allow that to happen. Again, do not be upset that there's noises, backgrounds, right? If they can hear James or they can hear Janelle, I love it. I'm like, yeah, I'm in an office. I do business with my brother, right? And I have another agent, right? Janelle's in the other room. They're also running business. Is it a little loud? Great. Let me go close the door. Right. But they love it. Me and James used to go back and forth because we were trying to be quiet for each other. Right. And we were missing on the fact that we can say, hey, we're running a business together and we're brothers and we're in the same office. Now they love it. They're like, oh, man, that's so cool. Right. Do you know how many people we've hired because of that? Right. From saying that we were able to do that. So take advantage of that. Building rapport. Don't go more than 10 minutes. Just be very calculated with your questions. The next one is the role and purpose, right? So Amber, if you can post that in band or post it in here, but the other role and purpose, right? Please write this down because still we have so many agents confusing this. This is not the role and purpose in the real script. There is a separate role and purpose that you need to say before you jump into the real script. I can't say this enough. This tells them what's about to happen in the appointment. Okay, the role and purpose sounds really quick like this. I'll just go through it. Right. Again, I've built rapport. Gavin, thanks. Right. Blah, blah, blah. I love the sunglasses. We've been building rapport. I get it. Love you. You're in Arizona. Awesome. Gavin, I want to be respectful of your time. Let me tell you my role and purpose. And I literally say that. Let me tell you my role and purpose. My role and purpose today, Gavin, is to simply find you the most amount of coverage for the least amount of premium. The way I get to do that is I work with all the carriers that do the mortgage protection. So I get to shop around and do that kind of work for you, which I already did. What we're going to do in the appointment today is we're going to confirm and verify any health conditions if you do have any. We're going to go over your budget a little bit, not to be nosy, just to see if you even need this. I do talk to some families that don't need the coverage, right? Rich uncle, $1 million in the bank account. Ha, 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 right? Crack a little joke. Usually we don't have that, Gavin, so we'll find some kind of need for it. I'll go over the coverage that I normally see other families do. You'll be able to pick several of those options. Whichever ones you pick, I simply fill them out today online. It takes me about 7-10 minutes per policy. It'll normally give me an instant decision. That means you have coverage as of today and you're protected. If not, it takes a day or two to get approved by the insurance carrier. But once they approve, they'll draft out of your account, mail you a policy, or email it to you, depending on the company we look at. That makes sense? Yes. Great. I'm going to just start with all the basic information. Boom. I'm verifying address already, right? You got to give them the role and purpose. The role and purpose does so much work. I've told them I shop around. I've told them, listen to the beginning of it. My role and purpose is to find you the most amount of coverage for the least amount of premium. My role and purpose is not, let me tell this to all the new agents that don't understand equity protection or critical period. My job is not to pay off your mortgage for the lowest premium possible. Does that make sense? My job is not, that's not my job. My job is to find you the most amount of coverage for the least amount of premium, not to pay off 10,000, right? Your $300,000 mortgage or your 200. It's not my job. My job is based on your age, health, and budget. I'm going to find you the most amount of coverage for the least amount of premium. That's what we truly do, right? So I've let them know that. Then I've let them know I'm going to ask them questions. I told them they're going to draft out of their bank. That means, yes, they're giving me bank information, right? And we're going to put a policy in place today. They say yes, they've green lighted for you to write a policy. Now it's right, go find something, right? And make sure you do these next steps. So the next one, right? So that's the role and purpose, the other role and purpose, because it's separate. The number 4 is just simply following the real script. Okay, just say it word for word. I promise you. I think Nicole, right? We were talking about this the other day, which was, you know, she was telling me, she goes, well, I'm not that comfortable with it. I go, well, then memorize it. Right. And she asked a really good question. Well, I don't want to take forever to memorize it. I'm like, yeah, I don't want y'all to take forever to memorize it. So write this down. If you don't have it memorized, and I don't need to see a show of hands, I bet you it's about 99% of y'all don't have it memorized. So remember this quote, you're 100K away. You're 8 pages away from 100K. 8 pages away from 100K because you refuse, right? You make a choice. You refuse to memorize this script. You're 8 pages away from 100K. How do I memorize it, Joe? Because I don't run a lot of appointments. I know. So go say it 100 times. Just go practice it 100 times. Say it out loud. Pretend you're running an appointment. Say it with your brother, your sister, your spouse, your dog, your plant, whoever. But you got to practice. You can make 100K. You're not a doctor. You don't have to go put 8 years into a college. You just have to go memorize 8 pages. Right? That's all you have to do. Say it 100 times. I promise you, you may not even have it completely memorized, but let me tell you, you'll be so damn close that you'll be able to do stuff. You'll be able to bring we talked about the happiness advantage last time, right? You cannot be you if you're busy reading. You can't do more than 2 things at once. I promise you. You can't be yourself if you're looking at a script and you're. So today, what we're going to do, James, is first, let me explain what mortgage protection is. It's basically a life insurance policy that's designed to pay off a mortgage in case a husband or a family member were to pass away, right? You can't be yourself. You're reading, you're thinking, right? I have it memorized. I get to make all kinds of jokes and I get to get excited. Hey, today what we're going to do, James, is we're going to go over the coverage for you, right? And I get to go into the whole thing. And if I miss something because I have it memorized, I can always jump back, right? But only because here's the difference. And I keep saying memorize. So there's a difference between having it memorized and knowing it by heart. You want to know it by heart. There is a difference in it. I promise you, you're going to sound different. You're going to be able to, right? That's where you can bring you out, right? That's where I don't sound like a robot. I sound like Joe, right? Don't sound like a robot, but you got to go have it memorized. 800 times, I promise you. Say it 100 times, go through it. You will be really close to having it memorized. But making sure you're just simply reading the real script and not missing anything in the real script, right? It says pull out a pen and paper. And then be real serious about this. How many of y'all read that part and just say, hey, Alicia, can you get a pen and paper out? Great, perfect. And then you keep on going with the script. Do you think they really had a pen and paper with them right there and then? No, nobody does, right? In fact, you should always hear, hold on, I can't find one. Give me a minute. Right? Because every single time I say it, my joke to them is, I know you never have a pen and paper when you need it. And I literally hear things like this. Right? Because they're looking for it. Right? Allow them to be human too. Nobody has a pen and paper right there and then. Right? But because I have the script memorized, I'm not worried about going through it. I'm worrying about doing it.
My favorites when they say, hang on, I gotta run downstairs and grab that.
Yeah. Great. Take as much time as you want. Right? And then I can build rapport. I can talk to them while they're doing that because I already have it memorized. I know what's the next part. Right? Hey, go write your name down. I'm going to have you go through this. We're going to go through your budget, right? We're going to, you got to have it memorized so that you can do these things. So just again, read the script. Don't change anything.
Can I
Right?
get a little granular with a question on that, Joe?
Yeah.
So I know the kind of the role and purpose in the real script kind of happens sort of after the mortgage protection section.
Yep. You're going to say it twice.
Oh yeah, okay, but so you're saying to still reiterate the role and purpose section of the real script as well?
Yep. Don't change it,
After.
right? Super.
Okay.
Clear.
No, I'm just
this
yeah.
question. This question is asked all the time.
Right. I just want to like get
the
a
other
great
role and
understanding
purpose.
from
You're
you.
going to say at the beginning, right? You're going to build rapport, and you're going to say the other role and purpose, and then yes, there is a role and purpose in the real script. You're going to read it word for word. The only thing you're doing is edifying what you're doing in the real script, right? We've already told them what's going to happen. So now it's not a surprise. And in the real script, there's also role and purpose, and it's just edifying what's about to happen, right? Because they've already agreed to it. So yes, you're going to say it again, and you're going to say it word for word. I promise y'all, this works. This is why you see so many agents crushing it. They're just making sure, right? They get their emotions out of it, be like, well, I don't want to say it again. I'm going to sound like I'm repeating myself. No, you're not. You're going to sound like you know what you're talking about, right? So the real script, read it word for word. Number 5 is FIF. I can't say this enough. If you're not doing an FIF, don't even run an appointment. You're wasting your time. Stop, quit. If you refuse to do an FIF, quit. Because it's like a doctor that somebody just walked into their office and they said, here, yeah, take this for diabetes. I'm not diabetic. I don't care. That's what you're doing if you're running an appointment and you're not breaking down their budget. How do you even know they need this? No one said we have 100% close rate. So why do you think every single client you sit with would need this? You're being a salesman. That's not what we do, right? You have to find out what they need, and that's through an FIF, right? A financial information form. You may have to pivot. You may have to adjust based on their budget. What if you put together some $300-400 options and you found out they only have $300 left over after bills? Do you even think that's a yes? Right? Here's a really good one. You got $100 and $200 option, and you found out they have $2,000-3,000 left over after bills, and you found out they put another $500 a month away. You should probably pivot and go find a bigger policy for them, because that means they have extra money, right? That's where you get to uncover, hey, I can show you an IUL. I can refer you to a Ken. I can do all kinds of stuff. But how do you think you should run an appointment if you're not breaking down their budget in detail, right? In detail, the way it says to do it. What's your budget? What's income coming in? How much are you paying for the mortgage? How much is your car insurance? How much do you pay for Netflix? How much is your credit card bills? How much is going into your savings account? A non-negotiable, how much is going into your savings account? Because we're just going to move a little bit over from there. Instead of the bank, we're going to give it to the insurance company. They're going to protect your family for the same dollars. The bank won't do that. But you got to break down that FIF so that you can find out, so that you can, right? The next one is number 6, why questions and emotion. You can't ask why questions and emotional questions if you don't have their finances. Because if I break down their finances and I get to say, hey, John, Mary, you don't work. You're kind of like me and my wife. My wife doesn't work because she takes care of my 4 kids, right? Looks like, John, you're bringing in $8,000 a month. But hey, John, you pass away. How much of that goes to her? He goes, well, nothing. I'm paid by the railroad. Okay, great. So an emotional question and a why question. So it looks like, right? Y'all said you only had $2,000 in the bank account, and after bills and everything, it's about almost $6,000 worth of bills and mortgage. How is Mary going to pay for that? You can't ask that question if you don't know their finances, right? Then I get to ask an emotional question. John, how does that make you feel? Well, damn it, Joe, it really makes me feel like I've been working for nothing, but I understand. I'm like, sweet. Looks like we should put coverage in place today. Yeah, that's why we're talking to you, Joe. Right? You can't ask emotional and why questions if you don't know their FIF. You won't have good ammunition, I promise you. Right? You have to do. Why do we get so many? Yeah, I'll do it next week, next month, 3 months from now. Hey, call me in 2 years. How many of y'all had those? right? I could almost promise you it's because you didn't ask a strong enough why an emotional question. It didn't hurt enough. We get paid to hurt their feelings. This is an emotional sale. Like James laughed. He goes, "Oh, no wonder I'm good at it." You're mean, James, right? You got to poke the bear. How many of y'all have heard us say poke the bear? Hey, Devontae, right? When you're running an appointment, do you get to say, right, like, hey, so John, because right, we know we had the heart attack last week, right? Or we had the cancer 2 years ago. Do y'all use that? That's an emotional question. I like to poke the bear. Hey, John, I just, we're looking at this coverage and I just want to make sure we had the cancer, right? I know that's a concern for you. And we only got, right, looks like a month and a half worth of mortgage payments. I just want to make sure, right, we should put something in place for Mary. That is so mean to tell somebody. But that's what we do. We get paid to ask the very tough questions. A good agent respects themselves and loves that family enough to ask that question. Because if you don't, they're going to say, nah, just call me next year. Give me about 2 years or 6 months, Brooke. You know what? It didn't hurt them. You didn't hurt their feelings, right? We have to bring reality to them. That's our job. We're a consultant. If a business hires a consultant, it's not to tell them that their business is thriving. The consultant beats up the managers and their business and says, hey, man, I can find you more money here. Why are you throwing this away over here? Why are we wasting hours over here? It's a beat up session, right? If you're going to run a really good appointment, you're going to have to beat them up a little bit in a good way, right? Because we open their finances and we want to help them the best way possible. So it's making sure asking those emotional questions. Then again, this one's super easy. Number 7, show them the options. Do not just go through it and say them out loud. In the real script, it says make them write it down. If you're using the slides, you get to visually show them, right? But they have to see, right, all the options. They have to see their accidental coverage. They have to see their mortgage protection. They have to see plenty of, right? They have to see it visually so that they can pick. They will not remember the first options you talked about. If you ever have a problem, hey, I only wrote one app, it's probably because that's all they can remember, right? Like, how did you expect them to remember this one's 12 months, 13 months, this one's 200,000 for the accidental, and it's 29. They just remember one number that they liked. I like $29. Right, let's do that one. Well, wait a minute, that was only the 200,000 accidental. What about the mortgage protection? No, let's just do the 29. They're embarrassed to ask you again what you said. Right? You got to allow them to have an ego. Make them write it down or show it to them. Right? But they have to be able to see it so that you can do that. Number 8, right, is assume the sale. Remember, you don't get a yes as a yes. They will not say the letters YES. It's so rare. They're going to say, I think we can do that. We can probably squeeze that. I like this one. I think we should do that. Babe, we should probably do the 100K. Or what do you think about the 100K? That they're asking for you to edify their yes. Right? They will not say, yes, I want this. I mean, they do, but very, very rare. Right? Realize you got to pull the trigger and assume the sale with any one of these verbiages, right? I like this. That looks comfortable. I think we can figure that out. We should be okay with that. I really like this one, right? Understand they're not going to say yes. They're going to say yes in so many other ways. Your job is not to question it either, right? So you want to do the 300,000? You just made them feel they made a bad decision, right? Do not question them. Great. I'm going to start filling it out. I'm going to make sure I got your name spelled correctly. James, right? Yep. Pull the trigger, start writing the application. That's what they want you to do. I promise you. Don't ask them a question about what they picked. You're making them feel like they picked the wrong option, and then they're going to think about it. Right? So it's okay. I like that option. Great. I agree with you. If you think they should get more, edify it. Go for no. Okay, great. So you like the 300, right? $300 a month, and that's 12 months, right? Remember, for $350 you can get 18 months. Did you want to do that? Yes. You know what? Yeah, let's do that. Go for no. If they're pulling the trigger, that means they can do a little bit more. It is not to get the sale, I promise you. I'm not trying to make you more money in that part. We're trying to make sure they got plenty of coverage. Okay, you got to love them enough to push. It is, yes, we make money off a sale. We're very blessed. But it's not all about right that. It's about making sure they have plenty of coverage in place, right? And if they said yes really easy, that means they can probably afford a little bit more. And it's not about the sell at that point. It's about making sure the very first time that they sit with you, they have the right amount of coverage. Right? You got to push. I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to a family. I'm glad you suggested this, Joe. I feel really good about that. Because now they see the value in it. Don't be afraid to push a little bit more. It's for their benefit, right? They're afraid. They don't know if they're picking the right thing. They know nothing about insurance. So sometimes they're like, oh, well, we'll just do the $20 one. James, how many times, right? We're writing the first application and they said that's all they wanted. And I'm filling it out. They got approved. And hey, I just want to make sure, did you want that accidental? It was only the $39. And that'll pay off the full house, $200,000. You know what? Yes, let's do it. I can't tell you, y'all better be asking for it again once you're filling out the application and you're done with it.
Yeah, you got to go for no. And they're like, well, I don't know. You get it, I don't know. It's like they want it maybe, but it's not enough. So then you could pivot a little bit lower.
I love that. If they say, I don't know, edify it for them. No, I think that's a great choice.
I go for I always just tell them, well, you want to just at least do the bottom one, the lower one, 100,000 extra. It's only, so you can always show them something smaller. And then you got an extra app too.
Love it. We'll finish this up, right? On or assuming the sale, also call a friend. Do not run an appointment by yourself. There's no reason. If you are not a 15K, listen to this, write this down. If you are not I am not a 15 a month K producer, I should call my upline in every home. Please, please. We want to help you make the sale. It's very simple, right? We posted the Kevin Purdy phone a friend in the home, right? Go back and listen. But it's super simple. And again, we're telling them what's about to happen. It's not a question. If you feel you're not getting the sale for whatever reason, right there at those options, they already said no. Nope. Benjamin, I don't want this coverage, right? I don't think, hey, no worries, great. I'm just going to get my manager on really quick. I just want to make sure I showed you the right options. Hold on. I'm not asking. I'm letting them know what the next process is. And then I'm just edifying. Hey, Jeff, I just want to make sure they're telling me no, blah, blah, blah. It's this and this, right? Have you shown this? They're going to give you some tips. Don't try to figure out an appointment by yourself. You should be closing. Everyone, how many people are on here? 65 of y'all should be closing at a 70% close rate if we follow all these steps, because y'all are not running them by yourselves. You're running them with your growing upline. Don't try to figure this by yourself. You see us post too many apps. We want to help you write those apps. We can't help you if we don't get the phone call in the appointment, if we don't help you prep for it, if we don't talk about it afterwards, right? We are here. Do not let that happen by yourself. The next one is locking it down. Number 9. This is super easy. Make sure nobody can come up behind you and close it or take them. Hey, Rick, we know what we got in place, right? It's the 12 months. They explain it to you. Great. Hey, the next step is you're going to get the policy in the mail. You're going to be billed by Americo and Mutual of Omaha, right? Making sure you let them know exactly what happened. It's going to be billed on the 20th of every month, all that good stuff. You're going to get the policy in the mail. It's going to be a big blue and white envelope. Hey, I'm going to take you off our mailing list, right? So, because we already helped you, do me a favor. If you have any more of those letters, throw them away. And if anyone else calls you, Rick, just let them know Joe Martinez got you taken care of, right? If they have any questions, right, just give them my number, or, right, like I said, just feel free to call me if they let you know something different. I am not scared when my client rings my phone if I've written an app. How many of y'all get scared? Like, oh shit, they're calling to cancel it. I'm not scared. They're going to call me with questions, or they're going to say, hey, Joe, somebody just called me. I told them you got me. Perfect. Right? Lock that puppy in. Nobody else can come up behind you and try to cut your legs out, right, and have your policy canceled. If y'all are getting chargebacks, That's probably what's happening, and they're not telling you. Do not think people randomly turned them off a couple of months later. Somebody came in behind you and stole that home. I promise you, that does not exist.